Well, welcome everybody, and to the October Gallery on a Saturday. Thanks very much for coming. Just please keep coming in. We put lots of seats out today because we're expecting a lot of people, so please excuse the crush. And we're here to talk about with Alexis Peskine, who's come over from Paris and whose works surround us. And Alexis is somebody we've known basically for just over a year. He was introduced to us by a very good friend of ours, another artist, Zach. And this whole show has been put together in a sense at super rapid pace. And I think just the fact that all these works have been generated within the last year is itself an achievement. And it's something, it says something about the way that Alexis works. But I want to begin by talking first of all about the progress that you make through, because in the other room, those who haven't seen it, there is a video, there are photographs in the other room too, which are not in here, and then there are these rather stunning nail pieces. So, Alexis, if I can, just take us through, did you begin with video and then move to photo, or did you begin with both of them at once? How do you explain the genesis of the development of how you get through to these nail pieces, which are the latest?
For this show in particular?
Well, just in general, I think. In general.
I've actually learned photo first, and for my nail pieces, I always start with photographs that actually translate into dot patterns in Photoshop. So my work, like photography, is always central in my work, no matter what. And the technique with the nails came later. I was still in college when I developed it, but like I always use photo, and I always use the nail technique and then other things. Video, I've gotten into it not too long ago again, because I've actually studied video in college, doing my master's, and I left it for a long time. To me, it was something about video that wasn't palpable. Like you didn't have video is kind of like abstract. Like you make a video, and then unless you have the DVD or you put it in a TV or a screen, it doesn't exist. Yeah, kind of. Yes. So it was like so much like editing and work and many hours, and then I felt like I needed to have something like physical, like palpable. But then when I realized I could work with editors and I could team up and collaborate with other people, that's when I started doing video again. And I don't pretend to be good at having dialogue and stuff, so that's why also I like music. I always like music videos, and I feel that music says a lot. And I wanted to suggest things through musicality, so that's why I collaborate with my brother, or people like Julia Sinma, or Doris, or people I know, because I'm surrounded by a lot of musicians. Mm-hmm. So that's how I came back to video. Mm-hmm. I think I got kind of off track with it.
Detracked by video.
Yeah.
Well, your videos seem to be, as you say, well, they're emotional. You don't quite understand the links and things, but you move through them because of the set of emotions that the images suggest, don't they?
Yeah. For this video, it was actually commissioned for an exhibit that was a video exhibit called Ceremonies of Dark Men, mm-hmm. Which was about black masculinity, and it was shown in the United States. Now, when I was asked to do that, I was living in Senegal at the moment, or I was in Senegal at the moment, and for the past, since 2010, I've been a lot there, and so what I wanted to do, because when we talk about black masculinity in the United States, it has a certain connotation, it has this negative connotation of fatherlessness and everything. Yeah. And so I wanted to show a more African stance on or Senegalese actually stance on masculinity, because that's I was learning about that. Like, so I wanted to talk about the Taliban children.
The
Taliban children. Taliban children are street children who generally come from very humble families, and they're given away by their families, if they have families or they're foster kids, to Mahamu, who are spiritual masters,
yes.
who normally supposed to teach them the Quran and take care of them. The problem is that like, often they're exploited and they're sent to the streets, I think that's something very brutal to see that like on a daily basis, to kind of have to ignore that. And because I was talking about fatherhood, I actually tackled that. Now, what I do with my videos now. So when I make videos, I also do a series of photos. So for Ajahn Moons, there's the video, and then there's like the 4 photos in the exhibit. Right now, there's only 3 that we can see. And I build costumes also to suggest some of the themes. So to suggest the Taliban issue, actually used tomato cans, which the Taliban beg with, and created a spacesuit to talk about, to create a visual oxymoron in the respect that when you're a kid, you dream about like, you know, space and being an astronaut, and so the astronaut part is sky being the limit, and when you're a kid, you can basically decide what you want to do. You have the future ahead of you, so the universe is like, you know, infinite. But then like when you begging as a kid, like there's no future into that. That's like kind of like a trap. Like you learn some tricks and traits, but like, and there's some Taliban children that made it, but I feel like it's a trap, you know, and it's not right. So that's and I'm really moved by that every time I see them. I wanted to talk about that, but then on the other end, the second part of the video shows the opposite. Shows a certain encadrement,
Frame.
Frame, or like the way society actually frames and takes care of their young men and bring them into adulthood.
Yes.
So I showed on the continent there's about like 3,000 languages to 3,000 to 5,000 languages. For each of these languages, like generally a culture, a tribe, and so and for a lot of them there is a rite of passage for manhood and womanhood. So I actually went to the sacred woods, not sacred woods, but I went to the south of Senegal in Casamance amongst the Jola people, and I filmed some of the ceremonies, which I thought was interesting also because like it's something contemporary. The West has kind of vilified and made like very mystical and negative and witchcrafty these ceremonies, but they're just like a baptism in the Catholic Church or whichever. They're as, you know, the same thing. Like I mean, they're not the same thing, but I'm saying they're as normal as, and they're as contemporary as that. But it was great to see this for myself because like it's not something that you usually see, and like it's something just really initiated. And of course, I went with some of the family members invited me to go because like you don't go like that. But so I wanted to show both sides. So you know the betterment of children, and then I wanted to show the way actually young men are taken into adulthood in these societies, and to remind actually, because we're from the United States, what we came from.
Well, it's very interesting because in fact I think one of the things that Western society lacks is a series of actual gradations as you go through your development. I mean, you mentioned we get baptized, we get confirmed, whatever it is. But actually the lack of those steps within Western society is actually one of the problems I think of today. That people actually don't know where they are within the society as such, and young kids are trying to be adults and so on and so forth.
I would say like one thing that like I think it needs to be like a kind of somewhere, it needs to be somewhere in the middle. Western society is very individualistic, and you know, a society where you leave old people to die, and everybody basically gotta get on their own. and then like in a lot of societies on the continent, so like that's the thing, like it's family, it's the clan, like and but the problem about that is that like everybody's in your business all the time, and you don't actually respond to yourself, like you represent your family, you represent your clan, so everything that you do, actually if you do something shameful, it's shameful for your family. So a lot of times people, your whole family is in your business, and so I think it needs to be like some kind of like middle. Yeah.
Just because we're talking about Senegal, we're talking about Africa, we're talking about, I don't know if we've even mentioned France yet. Just give me some ideas to people about the places from which you don't come from, but the places to which you have strong associations and links. Because I think it's important to realise that you move through many different places.
Yeah.
How does that come about?
Well, I grew up in Paris. My father is French and Russian. Grandfather had to leave Russia when he was 4 because of pogroms.
Because of the pogroms.
Yes. And my mother immigrated from Brazil, from Salvador Bahia. So culturally, I didn't speak Russian at home because like my grandfather left really early, and my father only knew a couple hundreds of words.
Yes.
Even though some of his cousins speak Russian, but language is taught to the mother generally. And but I was kind of like in, within Brazilian culture and at home. Then I was raised in France, and early on I left to play basketball. I went to the United States to study.
Yes.
So I also spent 10 years of my life in the United States, and I think part of my identity is also like deeply American, especially like Black American. I was in Black American culture. I lived in cities like Atlanta, Chicago, DC for 4 years. I went to Howard University.
That's in Washington.
In Washington, DC.
Yeah.
Howard University, which is the first HBCU, historically Black college and universities.
That was the first.
It was
one of the important ones, isn't it?
Yeah, one of the most important. It was founded in 1867,
Okay.
which when I think about it is really it's amazing because like
1867, Napoleon and French history.
yeah,
That was when slavery finally ended in France. Is it?
no, but like in the United States, in the United States, 65 after the Secession War. It's like 2 years after, and basically, I mean, if you understand slavery, it's like you're stripped of your humanity, like your children don't belong to you, your life don't belong to you, and you only have rags to live, and then like people built universities like 2 years after, and we then started building economies, towns, businesses. People thought themselves, somebody like Frederick Douglass thought himself was a slave, thought himself how to write, and I mean, and read, and did he write, and so, I mean, that's pretty amazing to me when I look back at that.
So this is all. I mean, there's a very large part of your work that looks to the American Black experience.
Yes, as well.
But you also you grew up coming up through Paris.
Yeah.
Are there big differences between what's happening?
It all comes so they're all Black experiences. They're different, but they all come from the same roots. Africans weren't Africans before the exploitation of them, and they were, Jola, they were Fulani, they were Bamileke,
European
from but basically at some point we've been racialized, and then they had to justify the slave trade and colonialism, and so like it's the same root that made certain type of oppressions that pretty much like anywhere in the Western world that you can find, whether it's Brazil, whether it's France. France is a different dynamic because they always try to sweep things under the rug, because unlike Brazil or the United States, they were actually a big part of slavery, but it was like in the Caribbean, or then it was colonialism, but it wasn't like in the metropolitan area of France. It was like in Senegal, it was like in Niger, it was like, you know, and so
it was external to France.
It was external. So in France, like, so that's why like, they can fake being in the
enlightened,
the country of human rights.
Yes.
I mean, I understand. I never understood how you can call a country of human rights a country that's like champion, like first or second in colonizing the whole world, like, you know, from Asia to Africa, like you can't call that. And you know, having slavery, human rights. I mean, like, I'm sure there's other countries, you know, maybe like in Northern Europe, something that's maybe a little bit more fit or suitable for that title, but not France. Not, you know, but it's hypocrisy. And France, like, I grew up, you know, with like police brutality and racism. Very early on, like, you're like, you know, when you're a kid, you don't think about that, but like very early on, you realize race, even though race doesn't exist, but I'm saying so, you know, on a sociological level. Yeah, that, so France was that, like, you know, I got ID checked like a couple times a week, you know, insulted by police. My brother, like, I mean, like, we were kids, like, you know, 11, 12 years old, getting stopped by the police. I mean, you said 12 years old, like, you know, the kids, and for no reason, and assaulted. And my brother didn't know what weed was, and the policeman put that in his pocket, you know, and it's crazy, you know. So that's the experience in France, and then in the 90s and 80s, also that's, you know, we have skinheads, we have people being thrown in the Sand River, being killed, racist advertisings, and just like simple things like products, like, you know, like cookies called Bamboula, which is a racial slurs like symbol. We had the symbol cookies, you know.
Well, we have in England, we had a jam that had gollywogs on it, little black dolls. It was a jam that everybody knew.
So, I mean, it's fine. Like, I had a happy upbringing. I ain't gonna complain. But like, those are the things that you gotta cope with. You know what I'm saying? It's like they're not gonna kill you, but like you gotta live with those. You know.
Just on, because you come from this very complex family with you have a lot of French intellectuals, you have filmmakers, you have artists, writers. I think your grandfather was a filmmaker at some stage. So you come from what is in essence a Franco-Russian intellectual family. Do you think that changed the way you negotiated that period of your life? Does that
definitely? Yeah. Like my family is very lefty.
Yes.
Like atheist Jews.
Yes. Atheist Jews.
Yes. Culturally.
Yes.
I mean, Jews, like, I guess even when you're atheist, like when you lived in France and throughout the Second World War, like it does mean something.
You know about oppression.
Yeah. Especially since my grandfather was deported and he survived it. So we're like, I guess like what was instilled in my family from that side was like, you know, being suspicious of everything that was nationalist.
Yes.
And yeah, you know, those things, and learn tolerance, and my family was like very left.
Yeah. But you, as you growing up and feeling impressed in that sense by police brutality, whatever, housing problems, and just being seen as the black kid around here, you don't look at the Jewish side of the question so much as you decide to work on the black experience.
Physically, I didn't appear as that in society. It's like, I mean, people could say like, yeah, that's true, like, yeah, you have half of your family is white or something, but like, you know, when police stops you and beat you up, like, they ain't gonna be like, no.
No.
I mean, like, actually, I've been with friends, stopped by police, like, we were a group of friends, like, and just ID check me.
Yes.
Like, you know, so, and I mean, unless like when I go to Senegal, that's the only place where I can be identified as white. But, which is like, also it's funny, like, you know, like, those kind of identity dynamics.
Yes.
But like in France, like if I'm saying like, oh yeah, I'm white, like you won't look at me like I'm crazy. So I mean, I can't identify as that, and so that's not what's what's actually prompted me or to react to certain things, to a certain situation. Like had my grandfather or father been an artist, maybe that's more of their experience, and but for me, it was more blackness. But then I would say, like, even outside of me, like, this is like a topic. I mean, like, you don't have to be black to be interested in that question. I mean, there's like a lot of researchers and doctors like who study those questions, in universities and do a great job. I mean, and so, but to me, that's what hit home. And I saw these injustices when you see your mother, like, being assaulted and stuff like that. It's like, it's pretty. I mean, like, again, like you live is fine, like, but it's just that you pretty much have to learn how to deal with these situations. You don't trust police, which are supposed to protect you, and it's like, I mean, it's alright, but it's not normal.
I suppose the question that interests me is, given that you come from a broadly artistic background, is it obvious that you go into art, or did you come in? How did you get into the art world? I suppose is the.
I was born in it. Like, I mean, like early on, like my parents, like they gave us like pencils and like like many parents can do. And they saw that we liked it, and so they encouraged it, they fostered it, And so me and my brothers, we all drew, and then we got better at it by practicing it. And it was cool, like, people had positive reinforcement when people say that, you're good at it, so then, you feel some kind of pride about it, so you keep on doing it. So I always drew. My brothers, like, all musicians, and I was in that kind of family, so I can't say that, because I know a lot of people whose parents didn't want them to continue. I mean, when every kid, until the age of 8, like, every kid is a scientist, an artist, an athlete, an actor, a dancer, and parents encourage that. But then when they get to be like 7 years old, it's like all this is considered
discouragement,
futile,
Yes.
And then you gotta get like a real job, you gotta do serious things,
Yes.
But I think we should foster whatever individuals want to pursue.
Yeah, absolutely. But you went. I think you went to graphic school,
Yeah.
Instead of graphic design, because there's a certain graphic element to many of these pieces here, isn't there? That seems to survive through, as it were.
Yeah, like I want this to, like, I mean, when I was in school, at some point I had to go to vocational school, but like I wasn't really
Troubles.
Yeah, a little bit. Already, and then but I wasn't. I don't know. I didn't feel like it was for me or whatever. So at some point I went to vocational school, which was really good actually. I mean, it was a graphic design school, and I had like 3 weeks out of the month I had to find a job and work in the field, and then do that. And then one of my mentors also is like my aunt, Marian Rashkin.
Your aunt?
My aunt, who passed away like a couple years ago. And she's really instrumental in instilling in me this love for like really simple, graphic, bold images. So I don't know, like I think I was saying that yesterday, is that like, for instance, I love the art of people like Basquiat, but like I've tried, but like I can't do something like messy. Like it's always like the aesthetic always comes back to something clean, simplified, and and that's the difficulty of like my own exercise, is trying to make like simple images that suggest a lot, and that are weighty, like all that I have in my mind, I need to synthesize it into like something real simple and powerful. And so that's the difficulty of it.
Okay, I'm going to use that bridge to the work that we got in the room here, because the nail pieces arrive 5-10 years ago, 10 years, whatever. Just
13 actually.
12, 13. Just lead us through the genesis of the nail pieces as pieces. Obviously, they're photographs that you rework. I remember you telling me once in Paris, perhaps, that your uncle had passed away, and you saw a photo of him in the obituary.
Yeah.
Could you tell me that story again?
Yeah. So my uncle Nicolas had passed away. And at that time I was at Howard University.
You were in the States, yeah.
Yeah, I was studying, and I was doing also studying silk screen printing as well. And so I wanted to pay homage to him and like make a piece. So I blew up the photo, and then I saw the little dots, and then I saw that while I was doing that, like I like visually, I like his aesthetic as well. And so I started working with the little dots and different ways. I had a Professor Adewale, in a mixed media class. He was encouraging us to use different materials and to think about what those materials could mean or could suggest on a metaphoric level.
Yes.
So I tried like different things, like I dug holes, I scraped metal, and until like I thought about the nail. I saw the Minkisi on the figures, and because my work was talking about the Black experience, I thought that there was a lot of things I could say with that material actually.
Yeah. So the Minkisi, I'm sure most people have some idea about Minkisi, but can you give us some idea about these Minkisi? You'll have seen pictures of them, I'm sure.
Well, actually, in the West they call power figures.
They're called
means power figures, I believe.
Yes.
And that was the whole idea of the show. Like for once, like actually I had the name of the show like way ahead, like
before the show itself.
I mean, it's like some kind of work that I've been wanting to create for a long time, and then when I got the show, it was like that's like an excuse for me like to go ahead, and so it was already ready. It was there.
But they're these figures of different sizes, aren't they?
Yeah, and they're actually made to protect their owner from the evil eye and from they're made to protect them.
Yes.
And to give them power.
To give them power to us.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're wooden sculptures that you find in the Congo, part of Africa, the DRC today, but from that Congo River area. And they were basically magical power objects. You can have seen them in the British Museum or in any of the major museums, the Smithsonian. And they have nails, they have pieces of metal hammered into them. Now each time the metal is hammered in, it can be an oath, an agreement, some kind of contract between you and the power spirit. They would have been used in different ways. But they were very much collected in the 19th century as objects from Africa. So you'll find them all over the British Museum. In fact, downstairs in the British Museum, there's some very fine figures with nails in them. And from the Western point of view, they just thought of them as African voodoo ritual power objects. That's what so they call them power objects. But you're talking about the real powers of.
They made that spiritual person who actually like licks some of the nails, and when you puts them in.
That's right. And in licking them, you're giving it a human attribute. The saliva makes the promise.
Then also like there's a mirror.
Yes.
In the eyes and on the belly, and you open it, you put herbs.
You put herbs inside the belly. So it's a complete world, which from the West is just that was what the Africans were doing. But you're seeing the power of these objects as well.
Yes. Yeah. So the idea is like of power is because again like because of my upbringing. I was suspicious of everything that's like national power, kind of like, but I think for us, like throughout my life, I've been frustrated to see the situation, and then the more you learn about, history and the reasons why we are in the situation that we're in. I mean, whether it's like black people in America or in Brazil, the fact that they can't rise up is not even like a black middle class in Brazil, like in the country where most people are black, or then you go on the continent and like many countries are exploited today. I mean, it's still a colonial state, basically, when kind of colonial state. So all these frustrations make you think about the fact that we need power, that the fact that actually we're in those situations and we have these histories because we've been stripped of our power. And so I don't mean like power, going to kill everybody in a Western sense. I need and taking over. I'm talking about power in the respect that we need to build up. We don't have power over our bodies, over our image.
Yes.
People define our own image for us.
Yes, personal power.
Yeah, like in advertising and in the media,
yes.
We don't control our image. The same way women don't control their image.
Yes.
Women don't. The women who shoot women, the photos of women are shot by men.
Yes.
The same way, black people, the way they're represented by non-black people.
Yes.
I mean, in the public sphere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it comes from, it comes from slavery also again, and the images of us in the cinema and in the media is defined by other people than us. And so that's why I wanted to reclaim that. It comes from a lack of power.
Yeah.
So we need to have, that's why in my work, the figures that you see, I call them figures because they're not portraits, they're figures, they represent something a bit larger. And a situation, a history of people. That's they're impenetrable, like they look at us, they tell us something about us and about a situation or about society, but their body is theirs and you can't get inside of them.
Okay, well that's you just said they tell us about us. I think this room is very interesting because when you come into it, I feel it's a bit like walking into a boxing ring. That you see that each of the figures is actually looking at you, and they have what I think of as a very level gaze. They look back at you, and in fact you think you're looking at them, but in fact you feel after a while that you're being looked at, you're being checked out, as it were. And I think we've talked about this a little bit before, but I want to talk about this sense of the gaze, or the regard in French, the look, because I think your work plays with that as a core element of what's going on. So you've just said that they look back at you. Just tell me the things that you see in them.
Okay. Well, there's a couple things. Creating you have to be aware of the images that is attributed to us by other people. So generally, like black people, we either like violent or like superman, superwomen, or like hypersexual, or cowardly, or so like in my work, like actually what I wanted to get away from all that, and so there's one thing that I'm looking in the people that in the features of the people that I choose to shoot is some kind of like melancholy and softness, fragility. This is something that's not generally attributed to blackness, especially for males and stuff. And then on the other end, some kind of strength and power. so you have a little bit of this, like I'm trying to create this poetry in between those expressions.
It's two poles.
Yeah, and so that's like, so the people that I choose kind of have these attributes in their facial features, in their physical, and so then when I shoot again, I honestly say much. It's just that, like, I think that, I mean, it's a little crazy to say that, but like I feel like I'm here, we all here, but like we're our existence like is longer than that. Like, you know, it comes from the past, and we're by the present that we live, we're trying to change the future. Like I'm on a mission, and this mission, like I mean, like I owe something to my ancestors, and basically this mission. So it's not just even my work; it's something that's like bigger than me.
Coming through.
Yeah, and so when I choose a model, then I have to convey that to the model. So that's, and so with a few words and just more body language, like they kind of get that, and they get that gaze. And
they get that gaze. I've got a question just in terms of the technicalities of shooting. Because when you each of these, first of all, as you say, it's very simplified. It's basically what we call a headshot. It's a face looking back at you. As humans, we are massively wired, right into all parts of the brain, to look at faces and to interpret all the very, very subtle gestures. So faces, we know faces. We know even when people are looking at us when we're not looking at them. Because something in the brain is seeing that people are watching me. They know. You know when you're walking upstairs and you think, how's my skirt, or somebody looking at me there. You're right, your brain has seen things and it's putting together somebody downstairs who's looking at you. Yeah. So the brain is horribly wired. When I look at your pictures, I see that there's a huge amount of actual energy and physical energy in the face. But the only way you can get your pictures, as far as I can see, is because all of the images, all of the figures, as you call them, the portraits, they're all looking at you. They're looking directly down the camera lens. But you can't have all those, you can't have them both. You can't both get them to look at you at the camera and have all that feeling. So I'm just wondering, do you come out from behind the camera? Do you have them look at the camera? Do you in any way structure it so that they know that they have to have that straight shot, but you're somewhere giving them feedback, face feedback?
I give a little bit of feedback, but like it's my, so I do come out of the camera.
You do?
Yeah. And then one thing that I do also that's like also a little painful for the models is that I have like a reflector, which like I generally shoot it during the sun.
You shoot it, yeah.
That's how you get the glow in the eyes as well.
Yes.
And I think it's in the glow in the face also. I think it's quite important. Yeah. It kind of sculpts the face.
It sculpts the face. Yeah. So you're reflecting. Yeah. Okay. I see.
Yeah.
Because the other thing is that obviously in some sense it's all about the eyes. If you look at any of the pictures, it's that part that holds the core of the message, whatever that message is. Yeah. But you have a very interesting thing, because you're working in black and white, or black and gold, or whatever it is, black and silver. You don't have the pupils as dark. You have the iris as dark, and there's often a little bit of there's a highlight in each of the. There's a highlight.
Yes. That comes from the.
That comes from yeah.
Now, basically the nail, like the way this is built, there's a black silhouette. Which is done with a scalpel and doing a pochoir. Pochoir is like a stencil.
Yes.
So everything is done by hand, and from that black silhouette comes light, and the light sculpts the face and the bodies.
So from the black silhouette comes light.
Yeah, and so the nail is the light.
The nail is the light, yes. Because the nail represents light travelling across, it's the ripples of light across the black surface, isn't it? Yeah.
And you have different sizes of nails, like the smallest
Yeah.
are the darkest areas.
Yes.
And then when you have the largest
larger ones,
nail heads and diameters, that's where you have the lightest area.
The greatest amount of light.
Eyes or whatever.
Yeah. But you're also, this is the other thing, is you're also contouring the nails, aren't you?
Yes.
To give this extra, you see, one of the things I find fascinating about them is you're really operating with illusions, because any photograph is basically an illusion anyway.
Mm-hmm.
When you break it down to dots, you're playing with the dot illusion, that you can make dots look like something solid. And it's the brain is wired to create these things, yeah? But there's an extra level of illusions that you're playing with. Because it's actually very interesting to look at them straight on and then to start to move sideways at them. And the whole thing softens a little bit.
It feels a little bit like alive, actually.
It does feel a bit.
And I like it to be a little, like the light to be a little dim also, because like the gold kind of shines through when it comes out.
Sorry, you're talking about the light in the gallery.
Yeah, well, in general, like
yeah.
looking at these pieces, and I think also it's like very mathematical, because like I'm using a dot pattern that's made by the computer.
Yes.
But then when it's translated into actually hammering physically with human
input, it's very manual, isn't it?
Yeah, it's manual, and so like the nails are almost, but not really. There's imperfections,
yes,
which kind of makes it alive and gives it something human.
Yeah. This is a great one. I love the fact that there's this line which is from the boards behind it that runs right through her.
Mm-hmm.
So again, there's an imperfection inherent in the illusion.
Mm-hmm.
You're showing that the illusion's made. She's as real, but that line gives her extra power.
Those lines, actually, the wood planks came from inspiration in Senegal of little wooden houses that's kind of like improvised, where you have like gabot. Gabot's like somebody would have like a shop like where she would cook for people who come like for doing their break and have like really cheap, like really good food, and that's kind of like one of those inspirations. Like that's kind of like a shrine and a temple also. I wanted to make it like to something reminiscent of a place where you actually live or get in or get inside of. And then another aspect is also that I've been using like for 2-3 years now, is the staining the wood, the earth on it, the coffee, which gives it a more timely feel.
So we're talking about this
the background.
So the wood is new wood that you stain
to
make it look old.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because like earth, and then this can bring a lot of things, like using mud like on your face. Like I've been at Uchais in Guinea-Bissau among Manjaco friends, and we went to the sacred woods and we spoke to the ancestors. And like you give liquor to
libation.
Yeah, and to the little sculptures who represent the spirit of the ones who passed away.
Yeah.
And then like you put liquor or so on the ground, and then it makes mud, and you put something on your body and everything. So that's kind of that then the earth gives it like a longer, an ongoing time lapse also, I think. And the coffee, I think, is interesting because like it brings an aspect of
slavery.
Slavery and human exploitation. It's coffee, but it brings the idea of sugar cane, cotton, all these things, cocoa. Cocoa is a big exploitation, whether it's like within the Americas back in the day of slavery, or even today on the continent, or even earlier on the continent.
Then there's one thing that fascinates me around. Okay, so we have stained wood, we have the black, which is a silhouette that you're cutting, the nails and them. But when I look at them, there's also there's what I'd call a halo effect, an aureole that goes around. And if you look at photographs, I don't know. Okay, do Do you have the catalogue there? Can you go 2 seconds? If you look at photographs, there's an effect of basically. If you look at the photograph there, if you look at the sky behind which Alexis is shooting, yeah, it's a blue sky. Yes? But the way that the camera picks up the blue sky, if you look around his head, that blue sky turns white. Yeah? And that's an effect of the camera. Yeah. It's the camera trying to register blue and the black face at the same time.
Well, actually, yeah, I work on that.
You work on it? Well, I was going to say that. I can see you work on it. I want you to tell us how you work on it.
It's like, I mean, something that's more dramatic. Goes for like Western culture also.
Yeah.
We used to in Christian images.
The icons.
Yeah,
the halo.
And it's to give like more drama into it and more intensity.
Yeah.
And to give something spiritual about these figures.
Yeah. Because I mean, the way I look at them is that they seem quite simple, but when you stand in front of them, you're using multi-layered illusions. The illusion that the eyes are following you, the eyes are looking at you, so you have to talk back, you have to answer those eyes. The aureole, it's all subconscious, but you're actually putting these layers in there to create something that's very simple. And the other thing, of course, is just scale. Again, talking about icons, the icon is a certain size. You blow that icon up, and suddenly the icon has a very different power because of its scale. So you're taking an ordinary person and you're making them much bigger. You're playing with these wonderful illusion techniques.
Yeah, I mean, it's to show our strength, like the transcendence, our power again. Because this is like really taken for granted. We have built the strongest economies in the world. We have built the most influential cultures in the world with nothing.
Can you say, when you say we, you mean the black people who worked to produce these?
Yes, in the New World.
Yes,
whether it's in Brazil,
so cotton, sugar.
Yeah, all this. That's for the labor.
Yes,
but now, in terms of culture, what we have built. I mean, that's personal opinion, but I feel like we've built the most influential cultures in the world. Like, I mean, slaves in Brazil were given like the worst part of swine, and they made the national dish.
Yes.
So the national dish in Brazil came from African Brazilians.
Yes.
The music,
jazz,
the music, the national music, and it's like it's funny because like the disdain, like we've been like vilified, and the disdain that's done towards us is huge, but we've made so much for these countries, and I don't know, we are these countries, the contribution of culture. So, and it's huge. I mean, coming from the lifestyle that our ancestors had to do this, it's more than extraordinary. So, in my work, I guess like with the scale, like I'm really trying to show that. I'm really trying to show this power. And not in a way of like supremacy, but in a way that it is,
cultural richness.
And for people to acknowledge it, so it's bigger than all of us. Like that's what I'm trying to make with the work.
Going back to something you mentioned at the beginning, because I've been talking about the gaze of the portraits, the subjects, the figures at you. The one work that doesn't have that has the eyes closed, is the one at the far end, which is actually called power. And you're talking about these different kinds of power. Can you just tell us a little bit about that particular picture? Because I think, am I right that this is the same man with his eyes open.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. And maybe this is the same girl here.
Yeah.
So you have an open-eyed portrait, and then the two of them together. It's a different portrait.
Yeah. This is actually so not everybody's seen it, but it's father-daughter piece. Yeah. Some people see it as a couple piece, but it's actually a father-daughter. But with the nails, that's one thing actually that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And that I realized is that, like, for instance, like as far as features, the faces, because I'm focusing on faces. There's no, like, for me, there's no woman type faces. Like the woman that with no hair would look like a man, and no makeup. And so it's like working with the nails. You have to like work a little bit more to make. Sometimes like before I made pieces and people couldn't tell if it was a woman or man. Okay. I think it's like a little bit the same with children also.
Yes.
Like unless because like what makes, I think there's like a feminine body type, but it's not like like a feminine face. You know. I mean, brothers and sisters.
You mean the clues for gender actually come from other things besides the actual?
Yeah.
That's very
That's things that like we condition in society to see very nice. That's something that I realized. Anyways, the father and daughter figure, and again, this comes back from the fact that black males, African males, are not seen as generally like fathers, or we don't. There's like a lot of like human attributes that's not given to us, you know, and softness and raising your children and
Look, well, being present there, the black men are absent fathers.
So this, I mean, it's a little cliche, but like it's still necessary in today's society. And I thought it was interesting to have a male raising a daughter. Yes. When I was thinking about it, it could have been like father, son, but I thought it was more interesting to have in a daughter. And so, and what's called power, again, it's the power for the future generations. Like it's transmitting something. So, you know, like during slavery, again, we were denied the right to marry, and we were denied the right to actually, like, our children weren't ours. So in societies like Brazil or United States, like all those problems comes. I mean, they're very. It's very clear that it comes from that legacy that system, and because you don't see it as much as this problem on the continent. So it's power, also like power as in, to me, it's power to be able to raise the future generations and to regain this power.
I'm going to pass the word quickly to the floor, but we're going to try and end correctly today, bang on time, because we have all kinds of other things happening. But I don't want to. I mean, there's obviously a huge political engagement with that flows through your work, but it's not on the surface. There's a hidden element. But I just want to hear how you think about the current political situation. And in the States, we've been hearing a lot about the Black Lives Matter movement. We have the same sorts of problems here in Europe. But just the current political climate, where we have the resurgence of white supremacism, so forth. What do you think is happening at the present moment? And how do you think about reacting to those things?
Well, I mean, like, white supremacy has not been deconstructed. It's been constructed for centuries. You know, through phrenology, through Darwinism, and it was to justify, like, you know, commerce and capitalism. So it's still here. So, like, in the United States, people thought that, you know, after the 60s, it was like a one battle, and like people generally equate time with progress, but I think, and so are surprised that, in 2017, all of a sudden, you got like KKKs and hoodies coming to like a university. I think it's like the Ivy League, even like like some of the brightest kids in the nation. I have like actually a little cousin that goes to that school, and to UVA, and they come and they see like KKK members in 2017, so like people are shocked. But that country was built because this again it's an illusion. Like that country was built on, they talk about like the land of the free, but for who? Like it was the country was built on white supremacy and on exploiting one social group over like other humans. So it's normal that it comes back. I mean, like it's horrible, but it's normal, and that's why like each generation got a task, and our generation needs to like tackle this problem, and it's unfortunately something that's going to be going on for like several centuries, I think. But like we gotta make it as good as possible, that situation. We gotta better it as much as possible. But it's very unfortunate. That's why like that's where my work stems from. Like my state of mind. I'm like I was saying, I'm angry. Like, but not hateful. I'm angry. And it's and it's normal. Like and I think we should all be angry. About these situations. The thing is like with art, and I think like now, especially like growing up in France, like you have to walk on eggshells to say what you say. It's like you're put in a certain situation where you're marginalized and you're discriminated against, and then you have to walk on eggshells about talking about that discrimination. But I came to a point where that's why like that shift that I made 2-3 years ago, my work was more intellectual, and I used a little bit of humor to tackle serious problems. The thing was that like people come like you can actually talk about serious things easier. But at some point I was like, this is like too serious to like even like joke about it. Like we ain't got the time. Like we got to tackle the problems, and the problem is that like there's a lot of agents, they don't even realize it, but like there's, because we grew up in those societies, in those white supremacist societies, we kind of all by default are agents of white supremacy, until black and white, like until we deconstruct what's been told to us and think about it, and it's a huge exercise, but like most people ain't got time to do that. They got a job, they got work, and they ain't got time to like really think about these questions, in a profound way. But I think that's like one of our people who are conscious and woke about it. Like that's their deeds, I think, to go ahead and try to talk about it.
Well, I'm going to finish there because it's 4, I think, and I'd like a couple of questions from the floor. But just to say that I think, Alexis, this is a very, very powerful show. The gallery is very happy to have the chance to present it, and we look forward to what you produce in the future. Thank you very much. I've got a few minutes to take just a few questions if anybody has something that they'd like to ask. John?
Yes, to get back to the pictures as pictures rather than as sociological phenomena, when I first walked into the room, I was taken not into the pixelated world of Robert Rauschenberg, but I was taken back into the 19th century to the French pointillists, and I got the same feeling looking at them through half-closed eyes of an intense three-dimensionality that comes from the... And I thought it's perhaps not purely coincidental that you grew up in Paris.
I can't answer that. But I've seen pointillism, and I've seen Sylvan's work, and I've also seen the work of people from the 60s, and actually I was much influenced by Chuck Close and Warhol, so the place where we all know, but like being exposed to this art maybe more.
Yeah. I think pointillism comes into the Ben-Day dot technique. There's no doubt at all about that. And that all our illusions in magazines and things today are based upon that Ben-Day dot. The old cartoons and things that come. Pointillism cartoons, and then
illusions, like even the way etching on money and it's something that I always found fascinating. This kind of
Any other questions? Okay.
What I mean, there's so much to love about them, but the one thing I didn't hear mentioned about them is just that they are so regally and gloriously black, noir, because we're still deconstructing that. And I'm like imagining this would be like such wonderful work to then have the workshop around, what do you call it? I've forgotten the word now. Bleaching.
Yes.
Bleaching of the skin and all of that kind of stuff. So I think that in itself just elevates the whole because there's no, to me, there's no skin more glorious than like that beautiful blue black, like light coming off of it, and we're still reclaiming that.
It's actually like a conscious choice to only like portray very dark skinned black people, because like there's all shades of black people, because even within blackness, like there's colorism, and also because it's everything that's attributed to like the darkest hues of blackness is always like ugliness, and there's like I live partially in Senegal, where like there's advertised like in the biggest hours where people like look at the shows on TV, like out of 5 commercials you might have 2 or 3 for like skin bleaching creams, and again that comes from white supremacy as well, like and it's really interesting that there's also problems with hair, the same thing. What I was saying yesterday in an interview, I think it's like really interesting that like people find someone less Senegalese if they have their natural hair. They think that they're tuba, then if they don't, instead of having a wig or a weave, and it's crazy, like, it became more natural to not have your own hair, for instance. And so, but to go back to that, like, I think like it's actually a statement that I made, because like, first of all, I find it like really beautiful, and I'm so frustrated by the fact that like people find it ugly and appalling and self-hate, so like that's also a choice. And I'm also like very conscious, because like I'm not dark skinned, so I have to be conscious of the history of imagery and see how I portray people. It's the same way when you're a man and you portray a woman, you have to think about these things.
Last question.
So you kind of answered my question, but is there a difference in the way that your artwork and philosophies are received by African, for example, people in Senegal versus black people that were raised in Western societies?
Like, I don't know really in depth how they really feel, but what I know, like in Senegal, people are kind of proud when they see these things. Somebody asked me, I think yesterday again, like how in relation to like the fact that people don't find like blackness, like dark blackness, attractive, like how people felt about it. Well, like some of the work I do also is to show another, like kind of like wants to even up this image, and to show the beauty as well, not just the resistance, but also the beauty. Now, like how people, again, like this, it's not something that I can answer really, because like I'm not them.
But even the feedback that you get, like, is there a stark difference in the feedback that you get from Africans versus, I don't know, someone in the States that's seen this, and is there a difference in their reaction? Like,
I feel like all across the border, like I get more positive feedback about it. So what's great is that like through the work, I think that when you see beauty, like all this kind of disappears, and they all the things that people could, the way people could comment. I mean, because like even in America, like people, there's colorism and people find, can find dark skin ugly as well. So the same way they do in Senegal and other countries. So I'm like really at this, I can't really, because like the response that I get is generally positive. So and they're about the same to me. So I can't really see how people live it.
Alexis, I know there are many more questions. I'm going to close it there. Maybe some of you might like to ask Alexis if you'll hang around. You can ask him personally questions. But listen, thank you once again.